I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Cultworthy. It's your host Antonio, and I've got a brand new guest on the show today. I am speaking to Neal Damiano. Is that right?
You got it. Nailed it.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Co-host of the Retro Film Podcast, but also a guest host and guest commentator on many different podcasts. The one that we'll talk about in particular is the Church of Tarantino podcast. This is where I discovered you. I am part of the Acolyte group too. I've been a guest on Scott's show as well. And now that I've really gotten to know you guys a lot better, I'm like, okay, let's get you on the show. And that's why we're here. So Neal, let's go ahead and kind of get to know each other. First of all, I'd love for you to talk about the Retro Film Podcast, how that kind of came to be, but also all the other projects that you've been doing over the last few years, blogging, writing, doing reviews and things like that. So we can kind of get an idea of where you are in the world of retro film, cult cinema, and just movies in general.
Sure. First off, thank you for having me, Antonio. It's really cool to be here.
Of course.
I just recently started Retro Film Podcast with my friend Giuseppe, who is a diehard slasher 80s fan like I am. We grew up with all those films. It's going to be a combination of 1980 slasher films from the golden era, actually straight through the 80s, and then we're going to switch back and forth to teen angst films, like all the John Hughes films and the raunchy teen flicks, teen angst films. I came up with the idea, and we're 2 shows in, so it's really, really new. So hopefully people will find it and be interested in it and listen to it. But I've been podcasting forever, for at least over 5 years now on all different podcasts, film podcasts, majority. I'm a huge Tales from the Crypt fan, so I've been on a couple of Tales from the Crypt podcasts. Huge Tarantino fanatic, so I've been on the Church of Tarantino with Scott on several episodes and several seasons, and I absolutely love that podcast. And I've been writing for Top 10 Films website since 2012. I probably got over 150 top 10 lists on there and several articles in my column, so frequently been writing top 10 lists on film and reviews for a long time now.
Yeah, and I was honored for you to reach out and have me listen to the first 2 episodes of your new show. Talking about Terror Train for episode 1, I thought was a really cool flex. I love that movie. And it's an interesting thing because to me, that movie is just bread and butter, right? To people, I think in the horror community, to people in the cult film community, that movie is bread and butter. But I keep seeing it pop up in some of these YouTubers and TikTokers. Have you ever heard of Terror Train, the little known horror film? I'm like, get out of here, little known horror film. It is such an influential horror movie. I just think that because you did have this decade of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, kind of swallowing up all of the pop culture phenomenon of this genre, that Terror Train didn't maybe hit the top 5, but that doesn't mean it's little known. I mean, it's a Jamie Lee Curtis horror film. You can't be a Jamie Lee Curtis horror film and say that you're little known or underseen. You can't have a remake and a sequel to a remake if it was a little known or underseen film. But yeah, again, I love the fact that you made that episode 1, and your guys' commentary on it was really great, really insightful, because it's great to hear other people's opinions on that movie. There was so many points that you guys made about it that I agree with that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, because the without spoiling the movie, the premise and the reveal of that movie seems so controversial in these modern times that I feel like some people are afraid to talk about it. But back then, it was a very, very little used clayture, and it kind of made that movie special. And then we've seen movies copy it. You brought up the fact that Slaughter High is essentially the same movie, just in an abandoned high school. And I agreed with you 100%. Like, the second you mentioned Slaughter High, I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I've been studying slasher films for a long time. That's one of my favorites. It's a classic at this point. I mean, it's a standalone slasher. Though they made a remake several years later, and then a sequel to that, as you mentioned. But I mean, it was cutting edge for the time. I mean, to have that reveal is just really takes a lot of balls, for that director to do
Yeah.
that. And it had Jamie Lee Curtis in it, which was smart because she had already been building a name for herself through Prom Night. She's been a scream queen, and she had that, girl next door kind of feel to her, which matched with the movie. And it touched on several themes for a slasher film. It's pretty intellectual. And I'm not saying people want that in a slasher film, but it's nice to have a little different take than, like bimbos getting killed in the woods type deal. You're trapped on a train and you can't really go anywhere. It's pretty frightening. So it's an entertaining, unique slasher film, and it's the first slasher film that I'd ever seen as a kid. So it had to be my first choice.
And it's got a great mask, which is utilized at the beginning. But part of the fun is that the killer changes costumes throughout the movie as he's taking out other people and taking out their costumes. So I feel like the cover of the box art as a kid with the Groucho Marx mask, that seems to be like the idea of like, oh, that's who our masked killer is. But in reality, he wears lots of faces and lots of disguises throughout the movie. And I think that's part of the film that the box art doesn't sell. And that's part of the surprise, right? Because there are a lot of movies where the box art and then the back cover give the whole movie away. Terror Train doesn't. It actually does a pretty good job of keeping it secret close to its chest. So yeah,
Yeah,
high marks of making that episode 1.
you don't really know what you're getting into. It has a lot of variables and a lot of uniqueness that you don't see in a lot of those slasher films, with the psychological aspect. And again, like you said, Slaughter High basically took the same plot, but just put it in a high school reunion, abandoned high school, and Marty from Slaughter High gets his revenge, just like in Terror Train. So it's basically the same. Yeah. So I mean, it's very influenced by Terror Train. That film. I love Slaughter High as well.
Slaughter High is great. Slaughter High, and I've said it before on many of my shows, has my favorite on-screen death of any slasher film. Can you guess what my favorite kill scene in Slaughter High is?
Well, I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm trying to remember the kills. I know there was a chemical burn in one of the scenes, and then someone getting killed in a shower. But I haven't watched it in a long time.
My favorite kill scene of any horror movie is the electrified bed where it's death mid-orgasm and it sets on fire and sparks are shooting. And I think it's one of the coolest ideas for a kill scene in any movie. And it's hilarious. It's frightening and hilarious at the same time, and it leaves an impression. There's lots of gory kill scenes in lots of movies. There's lots of painful, uncomfortable ones. I think Happy Birthday to Me has got a lot of great kill scenes that are really painful as well. But the orgasm deathbed scene is like my all-time favorite.
Yeah, it's a
anyway, we're kind of getting off track here.
the ending is insane.
Absolutely, the ending is insane.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant ending for a slasher film. That's one of my.
We might have to talk about Slaughter High eventually because I don't want to give too much of it away because we're already like giving away some of the best moments of Slaughter High, but I digress. So let's go ahead and jump into this because one of the things I always have my guests do is they get into my little file folder of episode ideas and I allow them to choose which episode they want to be a guest on. And you picked one that I've had on the list for a very long time, and I was really excited that you picked it. So we picked the Bad Part of Town double feature, featuring the main movie being Judgment Night from 1993, and then a true little known underseen film called Final Jeopardy, which was a TV movie that starred Richard Thomas.
I'd never seen him in anything.
You haven't seen that guy in anything?
No, I mean I'm familiar with Mary Crosby for sure, but he looked familiar, but I can't remember anything that he's been in. I've never heard of this film. I thank you for recommending it to me because it was a fun ride. I love films like this, but I'd never heard of Final Jeopardy. What a great made-for-TV movie.
Back when TV movies actually had production value, right? Where they were just a few swear words away from being a theatrical release with a PG-13 rating. Like, I think Final Jeopardy is great. Mary Crosby, most known from Dallas, but cult film fans would know her from Ice Pirates. And then Richard Thomas, who was John Boy in the Waltons, but then he was also the Stephen King emulation in the grown-up form in the 1990 TV series It with Tim Curry. He played the guy with the long hair and the Jonathan Brandis character all grown up. That's where I think most people would know him. Most recognizable because he had a big mole on his face. If you've ever seen the movie The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, the main bad guy, the assassin, has a mole on his face, and they call him John Boy, essentially making a reference to Richard Thomas's character. So that's kind of like the root of that. But yeah, Final Jeopardy and Judgment Night, you wouldn't think if you had not heard of the other movie that they have so much in common. But as we start talking about these movies, they have so much in common. For one, they both take place in Chicago. Two, it's people who are from the wrong side of town making their way into the bad part of town, and the local flavor get them.
Final Jeopardy was in Detroit, right? Though.
Oh, so you might be right, because I always thought it was Chicago because Dennis Farina is a cop at the end of the movie, and Dennis Farina is a Chicago cop, and that's why I thought it was Chicago. But yeah, so we can get into that in a second. Let's go ahead and start with Judgment Night, though, because that's like the main course of this conversation. And then we can talk about Final Jeopardy after and how I feel like there is an interesting meld between the two. Judgment Night, what was your first exposure to it?
Judgment Night, I think I saw that at the Fourplex because I was a big Emilio Estevez fan and Cuba Gooding Jr. fan at that time. Especially Cuba Gooding Jr. That was his height in '93 with Boys in the Hood and stuff. So, and I've always liked Emilio Estevez. So I think I saw that at the Fourplex in Milford in my local state, and I always enjoyed it. It's a fun fish out of water thrill ride nonstop. I mean, male bonding at its finest. They go to a boxing match. Jeremy Piven's character rents the big bus, all decked out, and they go on their way. And I think it sets it off really good with Emilio Estevez in the beginning. Frankie, his character's name, who is married. Mm-hmm. So I think it's in the beginning. It sets of almost like, and I mean, don't get me wrong here. It's almost as if it's like a punishment for being married because all of his other friends are not married. They're still living the bachelor life. So you get that kind of dichotomy where he's feels guilty for leaving his family as a newborn baby and the wife, and you see it sets it up where she's on the steps and she's kind of giving him the guilt trip. And he just wants to do a male bonding thing with his old buddies going to see a boxing match. Very bravado, macho. They have beer on the bus and they're going there and they're looking to have a really good time, and she kind of gives them the guilt trip. So I thought that was interesting. And then you see the relationship between the brother, where he's kind of the father figure, Emilio Estevez's character, and was it Brad Dorff or is that
Stephen Dorff,
the younger brother? Stephen Dorff? Okay. Plays the younger brother who's kind of in trouble still, quite a few years younger than him. So he comes along for the ride. And I mean, it's a unique film. It's not a crime film. A lot of people think it's a crime film. It's more of a fear of big city film. That's the city is almost sets the fear. You know, you're lost in a big, huge, rundown city, the bad part of Chicago, where they take the wrong turn, and all hell breaks loose. But it sets it up really nicely because at the beginning they're kind of having fun, they're adrenalized and excited, and then Jeremy Piven's character, who's the slick salesman of the group, and just wants to have a good time and really only cares about himself, decides to take an off route because they're backed up in traffic, and that was the mistake. So then they're going through a rundown area, and you really see the city as really, really run down. I mean, you see the wind and the bums hanging out classically in front of the garbage can, trying to stay warm, and it's really scary. If that scenario happens. And then it just starts a cat and mouse chase. That's they're trying to get home. Basically, they're trying to stay alive.
I think one of the things that I found really interesting about this movie is, for one, it does have a very prominent, I'm going to say, B movie mentality. The reason why I think that is, it's because it was originally written and pitched as early as 1978. And so when I went back and I was thinking about 1978, what movies were kind of out around that time? Well, you had like New Republic Pictures and AIP putting movies out, like Vigilante with Robert Forster. There's a film called The Siege, which is also known as Self-Defense, about some neighborhood guys busting up a gay bar and then chasing the patrons around town while they're trying to survive. It really fits in that particular era. And so what they were able to do over a decade later is take that genre type film and update it with 90s sensibilities, giving it a hip hop track. The soundtrack is amazing. We can talk about that later. The stars, which are like kind of at their peak, like Cuba hadn't gotten his Oscar yet, but everyone already knew who Cuba was, right? He'd already done Boys in the Hood. He'd already had a name for himself. Emilio was pretty much at his apex because it kind of goes downhill from there with Emilio. It starts doing a little bit more, secondary roles, bit parts. His main time as a leading guy is kind of over, right? He's already had his Young Guns. He's already had his Stakeout, another Stakeout. I think he did Loaded Weapon right after this movie. So it kind of was on a downhill spiral for him after that. Steven Dorff was always kind of like an indie darling, so he just was, maintaining that flow. And then Jeremy Piven, who had already been in some movies, I mean, he was in John Cusack movies, the late 80s, early 90s. He would meet his stardom with Entourage, right? But PCU, man, that's like the one where it's like PCU actually came out after this, and he's a college character in that movie, and he's supposed to be like a 30-something dude in this one. Oh yeah, I love PCU. I've already talked about it on the show before. But I think the real breakout here for me is Dennis Leary as the main heavy of this crew. You've got Dennis Leary, you've got Peter Green, who most people would know from Usual Suspects and the main villain in The Mask, and then you've got Everlast, who was from House of Pain, and famous for being Everlast. So there is something to be said about, I think, the modern twist on this is that this takes place in the Cabrini Green projects of Chicago, which is known to be kind of like the rundown black projects. It's where Candyman takes place. If anyone's ever seen the movie Candyman, it's that neighborhood. So to have these three Irish gangsters chasing these dudes through Cabrini Green, I think is an interesting choice, to not make it too racially sensitive. It's like, okay, we don't want to have like this element to say, okay, black against white. They don't want to do that. So instead, they have Dennis Leary and his Irish gang chasing them through the black projects. I think it's a great way to, up the stakes of danger, but also creating this villain that Dennis Leary brings to the screen where he's allowed to riff, he's allowed to be funny, but he also is very menacing. And I love Dennis Leary of the 90s, but this to me, I think, is my favorite role of his, and the ref. Like those two roles are really made Dennis Leary in the 90s. And to have him play this villain that you want to see more of and that you laugh at, to me, that's my favorite villain. A charming villain That's what I like.
Very, very, very charismatic villain. Absolutely. And you know what? I'm not the biggest Dennis Leary fan, to be
I'm
honest
not
with
of
you.
recently.
Um, he was great in this. Yes, I enjoyed his performance greatly in this for sure. And Peter Green is a fantastic actor, underrated, extremely underrated. He's done some really great indie films. There's a film that he did called The Laws of Gravity, which is kind of a rip off of Mean Streets, Martin
Yeah.
Scorsese's Mean Streets. It's a modern take on it, and he is phenomenal in it. And it has Edie Falco from Sopranos fame in it before she got famous. Uh, Really good independent film. I recommend The Laws of Gravity. But he's the main character, and he holds that film. Um, Really, really good actor. And I mean, look, Quentin Tarantino casted him, so you know.
It does really play with the idea. I think it's almost like The Hangover, actually. Like when they start the film and you've got him with the wife, he's almost like the Ed Helms character. And then you got the three rowdies show up, right? And I'm like, okay, this may as well be the beginning of The Hangover. But I like what you said earlier about how there is that dynamic where they're talking about the wife is kind of giving him some shit because, well, she hasn't been out since the baby's been born, right? So you're creating, I'm not sure which way it's trying to go. If they're trying to say that like she is just like a domineering woman, which I think is the way that they're trying to represent it. In the modern lens, that's not very PC. But at the same time, it's like she has a point, but he has a point. Instead of like villainizing her and making her like the nagging wife, they should both have like a come to Jesus together. It's like, all right, well, I'll take this night and you take tomorrow. It does kind of play on the sympathetic side of him a little bit. And I had some problems with that, but I was able to get over it because it works into his character later where at one point he was the alpha dog of this group, right? He was the guy that Cuba Gooding Jr. was happy to fight alongside with. He was the father figure, yet rebellious father figure to his younger brother because they both lost their dad. And then, of course, you got to have the one asshole, right? The resident asshole of the group, and that's Jeremy Piven, who's so good in this movie. Like, people are hot and cold on Jeremy Piven. I think for what he has to do in this movie to be the little weaselly snake guy, yet come and kind of have a heroic moment towards the end of his character's fruition, I think he did a great job.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, he plays. People say Jeremy Piven plays Jeremy Piven, but he does it so well. It's entertaining every time. His range of acting, who cares? I
Right.
mean, he's a character actor. Not necessarily a leading man, but he pushes through, and he always seems to play these characters that are trying to do some sleight of hand, some kind of angle. Like you see it in one of the most prominent scenes where they have to cross the bridge on the roof, and he what's the word, egocentric wise, cocky, says, you know what, no, I'm gonna work these guys. I'm gonna pull an angle and see if I could talk them into letting me go while all the others cross the bridge, where you have to or you're gonna die. But he's like, no, I'm the razor. I'm the businessman. I'm the smooth talker. I could get these guys to come my way and offer them money. And, it doesn't really work out too well for him. Uh, but, he gives it a try. And I just thought that scene was so telling about his arrogance. He's a very arrogant character, and he plays that very well.
It's funny because the other person I could see potentially playing this role is Jason Alexander, aka George Costanza from Seinfeld. And I think it's so funny that Jeremy Piven plays the George character in the sitcom version of Seinfeld that they go to LA to make. And I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm not the only person that thinks that Jeremy Piven is a good emulation for Jason Alexander. But that's what I caught out of that role. There is something about
You
Cuba's
have to have a character like that.
you got to have it. It's part of the whole thing. The
It
Cuba
wouldn't be it wouldn't be as entertaining of a movie without a wisecrack and slick talker, weasel type of guy. But I think what makes Judgment Night so fantastic is it really truly captures the essence of big city paranoia, and there's certain scenes that just really solidate this. Nobody wants to help them. There's just a fear. You know, it several times when they go to the apartment building and they're trying to get in to call the cops, nobody's letting them in. The two women let them in,
Hmm.
but there's just it really tells how scared people are in those rundown areas. The bus that goes by and they're chasing it, and the lady's like, "Oh hell no!" They're trying to get on the bus to go. Nobody will help them. They don't want nothing to do with it, so they're on their own literally. And the film does a really good job at showing that fear in these type of neighborhoods.
It does, and I think it's really interesting too that like they never were in any real danger from the element that they are actually afraid of. Like the danger came from this outside element, this crew of Dennis Leary and his gang who were after the guy that stole money from them, who they hit with their RV, and he was actually shot, and then they kind of get involved. Like the way the plot develops, it is very stereotypical, but it works for this kind of movie because it's really playing off very common tropes, but the stylish nature of it is what improves it. So I got to talk about that now. So the director, Stephen Hopkins, a huge fan of this guy. He comes from the school of Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Essentially, all of my favorite action directors at one point or another directed a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, like Rennie Harlan, and then Stephen Hopkins did, Chuck Russell did. And this is fresh off of Predator 2. Stephen Hopkins did this movie. And you can tell because the Alan Silvestri music is right out of Predator 2. When they're getting chased through the train yard, it sounds just like the Predator 2 score. And the way that it's lit, the way that the camera is on the jib and it goes over the rooftops and over the bus and over the railway cars, it feels very similar to that. Stephen Hopkins has a very great visual eye for that, and it works for this. Because, like I said, if it wasn't so stylish, if it wasn't so moody and atmospheric, it is just another grindhouse, bad neighborhood, run for your life movie. And I think that is like the conundrum of this film, why it's a cult classic, but also like my dad loved this movie. It just was a dad movie too at the same time because it spoke to so many generations of film lovers that it was doing something that they liked. It's got Death Wish in there, but it's also got modern day camera work, lighting, and soundtrack to it. There's a little bit of something for everybody in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean it's filmed very well. Just the darkness of it, but you could still see what's going on. Some of the light issues. That when they get in a moment of safety, it's really bright, but then when they're in danger, it goes back to dark. You catch all these little nuances in it, and you know it's a everybody loves a cat and mouse film, and it's you know the hunter and the hunted. This gang is very dangerous. They're showing prominent danger, and they're running at first, but then it has the classic trope cliche of, you know, the hunted becomes the hunters now. Now they're starting to defend themselves and they're picking off these gang members one by one, where it just comes down to the leader, played by Dennis Leary, and you know they hold their own. The third act, they're fighting back and they're doing well. They're still scared, but you know they're holding their own. But throughout the whole film, it's very suspenseful. That imminent danger still lingers throughout the film. It's very suspenseful still, um, but it's like, you know, fight or flight. They have to fight back, and you know, or else they won't make it. And the motivation for Frankie, anyways, is his family. That's the you know, the kind of the irony of it
Because
is
Dennis Leary's got his
she was
wallet.
given,
He knows where
yeah,
he lives.
yeah, and now so he has to kill this guy. Yeah, you know what I mean. So you know, there's no choice. They very diplomatic at first, and it all comes from, like you mentioned, just a bleeding heart, wanting to help someone. If this all could have been avoided if they didn't help that guy, if they just drove off. You know, that's the key. That's the key point. You know, they decide to help this guy because they're decent people, and look what happens.
So let's kind of talk about how this movie kind of came to be. You know, there were lots of names considered for actors for this. So throughout the 80s, when this was in development, Names such as John Travolta, Tom Cruise, Christian Slater, Ray Liotta were all thrown about. Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey were also in the conversation of playing the Dennis Leary part. I'm really happy with the casting. I think this was a really good moment for Emilio because it kind of speaks to where he was at in his career. You can't play Billy the Kid forever. Eventually, Billy the Kid grows up, right? And eventually, Billy the Kid has to kind of like face his demons and learn how to grow from that. And I feel that his casting in this movie and the role that he plays speaks to the evolution of this character, where it's like, okay, I'm no longer this alpha male guy. I'm a dad now. I've got responsibilities, and I've almost zipped up that macho guy that everyone knows. And what is it going to take for me to unzip it? I feel that is so reflectionary of where Emilio was at in his career at this point, and I think that was brilliant casting. Like the movie is just cast really, really well, and I think Emilio was the perfect part, because if you would have had a tougher looking, if you had his brother even, that's too much. That's too macho. There is an inherent softness to Emilio that worked with Billy the Kid, and it definitely works here because it looks like a hard man going soft. And I think that is the part of the movie that really speaks to, I think, both generations. When I saw this as a kid in the theater, I was really recognizing the Steven Dorff character, the younger kind of flighty, carefree, but I'm going to fuck you up kind of guy. And then I could see if my dad was watching this movie, he was probably more like the Emilio of like, okay, well, that's what I used to be, but I have to be a dad now. I have to be a responsible father figure for my little brother who's a hothead. But then the beast comes out. I think it's well written, well performed, well directed, and it really just works.
Well, I mean, he has that all-American guy,
Right.
straight edge, straight laced, all-American, can be a dad easily, but still has that kind of, let's go drinking with the boys, climb some fences and, whatever, kind of fuck around a little, you know what I mean?
Right.
He can kind of play both. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was a really wise choice. And he's a good actor, He had to break away from that Breakfast Club, teen.
He
He did a
did.
lot of teen movies too. People forget, like That Was Then, This Is Now. I think he was in
The Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
St. Elmo's Fire.
St. Elmo's Fire, right? Breakfast Club, where he's the jock. He had to break out of that mold, and he did a little bit with Young Guns and held his own. But it's a royalty acting family. People
Yeah.
forget too. I mean, it's the brother and the father too. The father's a legendary actor. You know what I mean? It's in their blood. So I think this was a good one for him. I would probably say, if you asked him, it's probably one of his favorite films he's ever done.
What I love about it, it's just a one and done type story. There's no need for a sequel. There's no need to extend it. It tells its story. It's in its own package. It's not like Young Guns where it's like, okay, let's leave it open ended so we can do more. Other films like that. I love when a movie can just be all self included and just wrap it all up with a nice little bow like this movie does. So yeah.
It has a lot of tropes. It has a lot of cat and mouse movie tropes to it.
Yeah, but we love that. That's the thing. Is like it speaks to us. We want to see that.
At one point, a couple of points in the movie, they turn on each other.
Yeah.
Out of fear, especially Cuba Gooding's part. Who's the smooth, the ladies' man. He flips out a little bit. And that whole kind of, we're boys, but we got to step up, type deal. He gives them the pep talk, which is needed. But he kind of flips out a little bit, too, at the same time, which is really great to see. Like Cuba's, he's just such a good actor, too.
Okay, so let's jump into the second film of this conversation, which is 1985's Final Jeopardy. We already mentioned it a little bit in the intro that it was a TV movie directed by Michael Pressman. Michael Pressman, a very accomplished director. He had done quite a few movies that have a lot of popularity. He went and did a lot of TV, but like what he was most known for up until this point is he did a film called The Great Texas Dynamite Chase, which is kind of like a sexploitation movie. He did Bad News Bears, Breaking Training, and then Dr. Detroit, starring Dan Aykroyd, which is a cult favorite of mine. But us 90s babies would probably recognize him most for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze that brought us the Ninja Rap. So yeah, this film, TV movie directed by him, I think does a lot of what Judgment Night did, where it creates a very tense environment, but instead of like the bad neighborhood, let's say the projects, this is actually downtown, but it's a part of downtown that if you suspend your disbelief, it's so bad that everything shuts down at 8 p.m. and the street's empty, and then it's almost like The Purge. That's when all the bad people come out because everyone else is hiding for their lives. And then you've got Richard Thomas and Mary Crosby as these small town people that have come to the city to land some business loans. They're working on growing their business, and they're looking for investors. And Richard Thomas goes to the wrong bar, and he misses his appointment with a very important rich guy. And meanwhile, his wife is out shopping. She's looking at stuff, and they're supposed to meet at this bar for dinner. And once they kind of get back together, they realize, sorry, we're not having dinner because the bar closes at 8. You guys got to go home. But they go to their garage where their car is parked, and it's shut down for the night. And now they are stuck in this bad part of town where the criminal element is now come out to the surface to play and rough people up. And they are essentially on the worst out-of-towners vacation you could imagine. So right off the bat, what were your first thoughts of this movie?
You know, I think this is different than Judgment Night, and I'll tell you why. It has the same concept, but the story is quite different.
Right.
As you kind of put some highlight key points to it. Whereas Judgment Night is a male bonding thing.
Yes.
They're going to a sporting event. This is a business transaction. This is people out of, not from Detroit. They go, like you said, try to do this business deal. He makes a mistake, goes to the wrong restaurant. And it almost pushes the fact that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And it's constant throughout the whole film, which makes it kind of fun. You know, it's a thriller, but it's still fun. It's still cat and mouse, but in a different kind of way. And the Judgment Night gang definitely displays a lot more prominent danger than this gang chasing, you know, this guy. But again, it's a husband and wife. It's not a bunch of guys going out. It's a husband and wife going to try to increase an opportunity. And you really have to suspend disbelief in this film because, like you said, everything shuts down. They can't get to a police station. The police station's closed. He tries to hop the fence to get to his car, the husband, and a dog comes out, takes his keys. It's almost like After Hours.
It's very much like
Martin
After Hours.
Scorsese.
100%.
But it's a lot more dangerous. After Hours is a lot more slapstick, kind of on the humorous side, just quirky characters. This definitely has a display of danger. But it's like the gang is not really, you know, it's kind of a funny gang,
Right.
not really scary. But, you know, it almost, the wife almost becomes the protector. He's just a very beta male.
You hit it right on the head, dude. That's exactly the difference between Judgment Night and this film. Whereas, like you said, Judgment Night is about the male bonding and kind of getting back into that wolf pack mentality. This one is more about like this male fragility that Richard Thomas has, where the dude is just a fuck up. For one, he goes to the wrong restaurant. That's, you know, number one. He keeps failing at things, and he has such an understanding wife that she kind of like pushes him to be more masculine. And one of the main things throughout the movie is that he is so afraid, in a way he's more afraid than she is, that we follow this development where, okay, now the wimp gets stripped away and the man comes out to defend his wife. But we've got a good 40 minutes of movie where we just watch this guy crumble under this false idea of masculinity that he has. And I think what makes this gang, I'm not going to say more dangerous than the Dennis Leary gang from Judgment Night. That one is all like business money related, right? There's no emotion behind it. Those people are witnesses. They saw this guy get shot. They got to take care of the witnesses. This gang is more unpredictable because they're just street punks. They're out for a good time. They probably want to assault the wife, and they probably want to take money and probably kill both of them, right? It's more unpredictable, therefore it is more frightening in my opinion because you don't know what their intention is. Dennis Leary just wants to shoot these guys and kill them. We don't know what these guys want to do to Richard Thomas and Mary Crosby, and that's what makes it scary.
Yeah, I think they're taunting them, and I see your aspect. They're more taunting. It's not as much business like. It's more street gang. It's very straw doggish, you know,
or Death Wish-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the wimpy guy getting picked on like straw dogs.
Yep.
Dustin Hoffman's character. You know? I do that. I always reference other films.
That's what we do, man. We're film podcasters.
Yeah, we're film geeks. That's what we do. But you know, eventually he steps up because he knows he has to. He loves his wife. What a catch! I mean, she's beautiful. She supports him on every little fuck up that he does.
Yeah.
He gets her into this mess. She has to run around in these high heels through like 2/4 of the movie, which got to be uncomfortable. It's just some of the scenarios are a little like off center and like suspension disbelief. Like you know they're going underground and they're making deals with these bums and you know they go. It's a lot of underground stuff in both films. You know, like the sewer wells,
Right.
Which is that's where it's very similar. But he just makes bad choices and he keeps trying to get help from the same way where it's not working. He's using payphones. You know, there's nothing that's the 80s. There's no, you know, he's using payphones and he's getting the cops telling him ridiculous shit that, you know, they kind of make their own rules up in this city. It's very weird. But he can't seem to get help. So he has to kind of defend and fight back. And, you know, it's just the choices he makes are just really off the wall, you know. And again, Judgment Night, it was very masculinity on both ends. Final Jeopardy, you know, he lacks in that, and you know, he's a businessman, and he's not used to these situations, so the fear in him is just like ridiculous. And again, the city is just not cooperating with him.
Right.
But like you said, what a weird city where everything shuts down at you know like at like 7:30 p.m. You know, I think they're trying to make it seem like this neighborhood is so bad that we have to shut down because of all these street punks. But this film is more like you know, Park is Mine, or like you know, Vigilante, where it's street gangs.
Yeah.
What was that film with what was that guy's name where they take over the building? Remember that early 80s?
Defiance?
Yeah, it's very defiant. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that this fits right in the mold of Defiance. Vigilante, of course. The Tom Skerritt film directed by Louis Teague, Fighting Back, where it's like you know, everything's fine one day, and then the hood crime guys move in the next day, and you have to fight back and be a vigilante 100%.
And what is his name? Gian Vincent is in that, right?
In which one?
Remember him? Wasn't Gian Vincent? I can't remember.
Jan Michael Vincent
was in one of them.
Yeah, he's in Defiance.
Yeah, it was in Defiant, right? What a great movie! I haven't seen that in years, but
yeah, it's such a great movie. Yeah, but you said something earlier comparing about After Hours, which I agree, where there is like a fantastical notion to what this movie is and the city that it exists in, where like there is an underground community of these homeless guys that have like their own currency, they have their own access tunnels to get around. They've kind of created a society underground to escape the street punks above. They go into the abandoned movie theater where they find the corpse. Like there's a lot of cool, kind of interesting things that seem almost fantastical. The way I look at it, it's almost like Greek mythology, right? Where they've left the world and gone into the underworld, right? Now they are in the underworld where there's all the different people who are guarding different accesses out while they're being chased. It's very mythological. Absolutely. And I love that because it plays like a crime thriller, but at the same time, the survival aspect and the fantastical nature of the movie just makes it its own thing. And one thing I love about TV movies, man, is they are so strict with structure and plot development because they have to fit between commercial breaks. So if you watch this movie on YouTube, as I did, it's got like a title card at the end of commercial break. You're watching Final Jeopardy. They had to like make the movies fit within these like 8 to 10 minute blocks before a commercial break. So you'd have action scene, commercial break, action scene, commercial break, exposition, commercial break. It's a lost art. It really is. Just be able to plot a movie based on when the commercial is going to play, still have it be entertaining, but also you're not meandering like you would in a 2 hour movie in a theater. There's something really cool about that.
You know, it kind of adds to the suspense. You want to see what's going to happen next, but you have to wait. I mean, people hate commercials, but it's TV. It's like Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. Same thing. One of my favorite TV made for TV.
100%.
The commercial breaks. But
yeah,
I mean, it's entertaining, and like I said, the choices he makes when him and his wife get into that rundown theater, the gang doesn't know where they are. They could have stayed there all night, but the wife had to scream because she saw a dead body. So we wouldn't have a movie if she didn't. But they could have easily stayed there till morning, where the gang probably wouldn't have found them. I mean, there was nobody in there to give them up.
I think that's really interesting too, because he does have his moment of, I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone that wants to watch it on YouTube, but he does have his moment of triumph and masculinity where he comes back. Like you said, he has a straw dogs moment where he fights back and he wins and he shows her that there is a different side to himself other than the scared, insecure, and bumbling idiot that she married. Now he is this new person. It's almost like the George McFly conundrum, right? Well, all of a sudden he has a persona to him. He's got posture and stance. He kicked some ass, and now he's going to go get this business deal. He's probably going to go meet that business guy all tattered and torn and be like, guess what I did last night? Now give me your money, kind of thing, right? But there is something kind of comical about the ending where it has an after hours ending where the light comes, right? Darkness ends, daylight comes, and everything's kind of back to normal. And the dude who gives him his keys to his car as he opens the garage, like these two are tattered and torn, beaten up, bloody. And the guy's like, all right, here's your keys. Like it's no big deal.
Right. And then he says, which is great, you ought to be more careful. Right. As almost as if he knows what they've been through. He kind of winks at them.
And it's not the first time it's happened.
Right, which is very After Hours-ish. It definitely has that feel to it, and After Hours is a fantastic film, so you can't go wrong with being influenced by that movie. But like I said, some of the choices are kind of, you have to suspend disbelief. They could have found a really good hiding spot, which they kind of did. I know he's not street smart, but you could have hot-wired a car or something. But they just keep running and getting nowhere, and the gang catches up to him. And just
well, and that's what I love about movies like Judgment Night and this movie is because it's almost like you're along for the ride, right? This is a movie where you are essentially the third person in this group. And so when you watch Judgment Night, as a viewer, you are thinking about all the different scenarios you could do to get away from this game. Like, why don't you guys just hide in the stairwell? Why don't you guys hide in the boiler room? Like, there's got to be something you can do. And then it frustrates you every time they make a decision that you wouldn't make. The same way that people make fun of, like, okay, in the horror movie, they're going to run up the stairs when the killer's chasing them and set out the front door. Like, Scream nailed that whole trope, right? It's true. We're doing that. And in Final Jeopardy, I think I did it more than in Judgment Night because it's just the two of them.
The screen,
It's like, what are you doing? Why are you going that way?
Right. Why would you make that choice or do this? You could do this easily. Come on. I mean, think a little bit. It's frustrating. But
the first 10 minutes, I was like, go home, Mary Crosby. Don't stay with this guy another second. He's going to get you killed. But anyway, no, I think this is a good double feature.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the concept's the same, but it's different in its storyline. But there's similarities to it, and essentially both of them are, cat. What is fish out of water? Took the wrong turn.
Yeah, cat and mouse
situations. cat and mouse situations. But like these movies, people love these type of movies. Like Warriors, which is a classic. They're just trying to get home.
Yeah.
These
Right.
are the essential theme. Is they're just trying to get to safety, trying to get home, and that's essential.
It's the Odyssey, right? It's Greek mythology. It is that classic trope. It's the hero's journey. It is everything that we've seen in classic cinema just brought to a more contemporary time. And it shows that you can do one as a very hard R-rated movie, and you can do one as a TV movie. And I feel the suspense and the tension is the same in both because the stakes are the same. And when I was putting this double feature together, like the one thing I was thinking about is I really did think about doing Final Jeopardy with After Hours as a conversation. But I feel like it just has a little bit more in common with Judgment Night. And then After Hours, I feel, has more in common with a film from the 80s, which you may have seen, called The Night Before, with Keanu Reeves and Lori Loughlin, where he takes her on a prom date, but the compass in his car get messed up and he goes south instead of north, and they end up in the projects. And then it's an after-hours situation in the projects. I think those two work better together because there's a quirkiness to it, where these two are more, the stakes are higher, the violence is real, and are they going to get home?
Yeah, these two movies are present danger. After Hours is just a word processor just trying to get home, living in Midtown New York. Who comes
right? He falls for a crazy chick, as we all do.
Yeah,
and then he gets stuck in a weird part of town.
Trying to get some from Rosanna Arquette, who's absolutely was smoking hot. I don't blame him. It has a lot of quirky lines in it, quirky characters, and I love that movie so much. Griffin Dunn nails it. I don't see anybody that could play that character better than him. It's one of my favorite directed Scorsese films.
Agreed, 100%. It's my second favorite Scorsese film. Color of Money is my first favorite.
I have a weird list with him. I have a unique. When people ask me Scorsese films, I mean, he's one of my favorite directors, but it's not what people would expect from me, because people would expect Goodfellas and Casino, and it's not. Mine's a very unorthodox.
Those are great films, but they're not even in my top 5.
Yeah, mine is like After Hours, Bringing Out the Dead. I absolutely love. That's one of my favorite films.
That's number 4 for me.
What's that?
That's number 4 for me.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like I think it's number 2 for me after Hours. But yeah, I like those quirky Scorsese films. I mean, I love Mean Streets too. But Goodfellas and Casino, they're great movies, but not really my, cup of tea.
All right, man. Well, thank you for joining me on this conversation. Let's take a couple minutes and let you plug your show, where people can find you, and what's coming up in the world of the Retro Film Podcast.
Well, we just did Mother's Day, which is an obscure film. Wasn't my pick, but it's a fun little film, trauma film. It was Giuseppe's pick, but my pick is coming up for the teen angst portion of our podcast, and I'm going with the OG, amazing classic teen film that pretty much started it off all, and that's Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I can't wait to do. Everybody loves that film. It's so many dimensions to that film for a teen film, and I can't wait to do it. So we're going to do that next. We're kind of working out a filming schedule, and we're just started this, so bear with us. But we plan to do that one next, and then we're going to go back to Slash. Oh no, Giuseppe's going to pick his teen film, and then we're going to go back to Slasher from the 80s. So it's on all the major podcasts. Look out for that. You can see my articles on Top 10 Films website at top10 films.co.uk, because it's out of United Kingdom. But you just punch in my name and you'll see all my column for it in my articles, which I do frequently. And, I'll probably be back on Church of Tarantino soon too as well, doing guest spots.
Yeah, it's always fun jumping in a show. And I will have your link tree in the show notes of this episode. I'll have the link to Retro Film Podcast as well. And yeah, man, thank you for your insight. Thank you for taking a chance on Final Jeopardy. That's usually one of the things that I like about having guests on is usually the second film in my double feature episodes are pretty obscure. And if they're a TV movie, they're even more obscure. And again, I would have never have found that movie had it not been for listening to a podcast where someone was talking about Judgment Night and said, there was this TV movie from the 80s called Final Jeopardy. I'm like, well, now I got to look that up. And that's what's so great about doing this is like I learned from somebody and then someone can learn from us and they can be exposed to a new film they've never seen.
That's the great thing about this community. Yeah, I mean, film geek podcasters. You learn something new. And like again, I learned this movie from you. I'd never heard of this film before, honestly. Never. All the others, yeah, but this one slipped by me.
Yeah, it's awesome, and that's the whole point. The Cultworthy podcast. It is a podcast to help promote films that are already cult films, and then help to make future cult films out of films that not a lot of people have heard of.
Well, let me say this, Antonio. I mean, I'm not just saying this because you're here. You see the messages I send. You guys are right in my brain as far as the film wave because you do movies that I absolutely love that nobody else does. Like my favorite Cannon film, Dangerously Close. Absolutely love that film.
So good.
Tough Turf.
So
love
good.
it. I have the poster.
Right.
Loved the Morgan character. That's how I became a huge James Spader fan. It's just such a great teen movie. Always loved it. But you guys do those kind of quirky movies that not a lot of other podcasts do. And so we're kind of following the same trail that you guys are doing with retro. We're going to try to do films that oh yeah, no, I remember that film, or I've never heard of that film, so let me check it out, so, but you guys pick some doozy, some good ones, man.
Well, I appreciate that. It means that I'm doing my homework and I'm trying to spread the love. It's almost like a religion, right? Like we got the gospel of cult cinema and we're just trying to spread it out there amongst the cinema fans and the geeks. All right, Neal, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, please go like, rate, review, and subscribe to the Retro Film Podcast. I did it on Spotify, but you guys are on Apple Podcasts and everyone else too. Go listen, give them 5 stars, subscribe, share it on your social media.
If you like those kind of films from that era, for sure, it probably would interest you. We appreciate the support, but we're just getting rolling, so bear with us. It's right in the beginning stages. Yeah. With everything, with production-wise and content and picking the movies. And, it's very, very brand new. So check it out.
Yeah, check it out. They're just going to get better. And, of course, please go like, rate, review, subscribe to me, the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast. You can find me at thecultworthy.com. And don't forget to check out my other podcast, Back to the Balcony, my Siskel and Ebert retrospective with Justin Henson of the Movie Wire as my co-host, where we go and critique the critiques of Siskel and Ebert. You can find that on YouTube as well. And with that, my friend Neal, I will see you later.
Yeah, maybe another episode for sure.
Oh, for sure, man. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.